right, so ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this because Chuck Schumer, the Democrat Party, they're getting desperate. They're getting so desperate right now because they're worried about the fact that the Republicans may never lose another election. And so now you got Schumer. He's out here making his rounds with legacy media, trying to scare up black voters, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, that's right. According to Chuck Schumer, voter ID is racist and sexist. But here's the problem that they're facing right now. Americans as a whole agree that voter ID just makes sense. Whether you're black, white, Hispanic, the vast majority of the American people support it. Polls show huge backing, even from Democrats, and yes, those black voters that should be so concerned. And so why is Schumer pushing this nonsense? Well, because common sense election security threatens the Democrat Party game plan. As always, don't forget, smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way you let me know you like the content. Subscribe to stay locked in with more. Let's get into it.
So, Leader Schumer, this talk about election security has revived discussions of the SAVE Act, which you have said you oppose. Proponents of it say that it's, to have ID, you have to prove U.S. citizenship to be able to vote. Though some of the claims they make, to be clear, are overstated. We know there's not widespread election fraud. But polling does suggest, there's a new Pew Research poll, that 95% of Republicans, but also 71% of Democrats like this idea. So why do you not?
It's Jim Crow 2.0. And I called it Jim Crow 2.0, and the right wing went nuts all over the internet. That's because they know it's true. What they're trying to do here is the same thing that was done in the South for decades to prevent people of color from voting. For instance, if you change, you're a woman who got married and changed your last name, you won't be able to show ID and you'll be discriminated against. If you can't find a birth certificate or a proper ID, you'll be discriminated against. This is vicious and nasty. And I said to our Republican colleagues, it will not pass the Senate. You will not get a single Democratic vote in the Senate. We're not reviving Jim Crow all over the country.
Somehow Chuck Schumer is against voter ID because he's claiming that in 2026, with all the technology that we have, background checks, database verification systems, it somehow won't be possible for a married woman who changed her last name to be able to vote. Think about how ridiculous that sounds. I mean, really think about it. We're supposed to believe that in a world where we can verify your identity for pretty much anything. You want to buy a house, get a passport, board a plane, open a bank account, but somehow there's no way to verify that a woman is who she says she is just because she changed her last name after marriage. That's the argument. And then he want to go with the talking point that voter ID will somehow discriminate against black people, against black voters, as if black people don't know how to gather their documents, as if black Americans are incapable of getting an ID. That's the narrative. And so what's so crazy about what Chuck Schumer just said is now you have people bringing up old video footage of Barack Obama resurfacing from 2012, needing voter ID. Imagine that. And so let's take a look at this real quick.
He needs an ID.
Oh, you bet you're right. Hold on. I got my driver's license. Here you go.
And so what you hear right there is one of the attendants who helped with the voting process. She says, you need an ID. And then you have Obama and you hear him say, you're right. And he brings out the ID. And I don't think he worried about Jim Crow 2.0, bringing out his ID, making sure that he represents that who he is, who he says he is. But somehow Chuck Schumer, he believes that. And here's another one. Here's rare Jim Crow era footage of Joe Biden showing his ID to vote in a 2022 midterm election. Let's check this one out.
Hi. How you doing? Thank you. Thank you.
Her first vote.
Yeah. Oh, congratulations. Your first name?
I'm Natalie.
Natalie Biden, now voting. Pretty good. You look better in person.
Yes.
It's always fascinating to watch the hypocrisy on the left when you see things that they were in lockstep with supporting. Immigration enforcement, voter ID, but somehow under Donald J. Trump as president, they got a major problem with the things that once they were all for, and they had no problem with actually being put in place. All right, so let's get into the next clip where Stephen A. Smith, Bill Maher are sitting down and they're having a conversation, and they touch on Chuck Schumer's comments about the whole Jim Crow 2.0 trying to fearmonger black voters. Let's take a listen.
Things that I did to start off my show today is that I brought up Senator Chuck Schumer because Chuck Schumer called what Trump's trying to do with the elections. He called it Jim Crow 2.0. And what I guarded against, I said, I've taken heat from the Democratic Party from time to time. You certainly have, on numerous occasions. And I said, don't get Trumpish. Don't engage in that kind of hyperbole, because we're living in the year 2026. And when you start bringing up Jim Crow 2.0, you're trying to harken back to a time that most people recognize. No, we're not living in those times now. Of course, we've got our troubles, but we're not doing. Don't do that, because that's playing right into Trump's hands. Was I right in saying that?
And yes, and you're factually right. It's this thing that he's trying to do with not conceding elections. That it's not primarily a racial issue. Not everything is primarily a racial issue. It has racial overtones, as does everything in this country. But yes, you're right. It's foolish to make it about that. And it's also foolish because Biden used that exact phrase about voting in Georgia. And then they did polling after that next election came up. And even the black folks said, we had no problem voting. So, like you say, don't engage in the kind of hyperbole that's just going to bite you in the ass.
Now, I'll give Stephen A. some credit here because he actually called it out. But come on, Stephen A. This isn't Democrats suddenly getting Trumpish. This is what the Democrat Party has always done. This is their playbook. When they're losing the argument on the facts, they reach for whatever they think will work. Play the race card, stir emotions, manufacture fear. Anything they believe will pressure the American people into letting them do what they want. We've seen it before. And to be fair, it has worked for them in the past. Just not as much anymore. And so we'll see. We'll see if Chuck Schumer keeps trying to push this weak narrative, or if he even realizes it's falling flat. But now let me show you the next clip. This is Senate Majority Leader John Thune speaking on the issue. And listen closely. I want you to listen closely, because here's the bottom line, ladies and gentlemen. If the Republican Party cannot get this done, if they have control of the House and the Senate and still fail, then they don't deserve control. Because what that means is they let Chuck Schumer bully them into backing down on something that is overwhelmingly supported by the American people, regardless of political affiliation. But let's take a listen.
That is, should non-citizens be voting in American elections? The answer is no. And the Democrats have taken a hard position that it's okay. Now, the law already prevents that, but if that's true, then why wouldn't we want to put into law something that would require, when you go to vote, that you prove you're a United States citizen? And that's all the SAVE Act does. And so, they can cry and lament this actually being voted on, but I'd be hard-pressed to have to defend a position that doesn't believe that you have to be an American citizen to vote in an American election.
I'll finish off with the words of Speaker Mike Johnson defending the SAVE Act. This is from yesterday. Leader Thune, listen.
The SAVE Act just simply says you have to have verification of citizenship to register to vote. That's about a 90-10 issue on many of the polls in this country. And we're going to enhance it by what the president calls the Save America Act. And so it would be proof of citizenship to register to vote and voter ID, which is also about an 80 or 90% issue on the polling nationwide.
Yeah, and so Republicans need to get this done. Use the standard filibuster, do whatever you have to do. But you have to get this done. There are really no excuses. And so we'll see. Let's get into this clip right here. This is the mayor, Jacob Fry. For some reason, this guy thinks he's far more powerful and has more authority than what he actually does. And he keeps saying things that they just don't make any sense. But here's the reality right now. Tom Homan has access to the jails, and Minnesota is now cooperating with federal authorities. That's the situation no matter how much certain local leaders like Jacob Fry want to pretend otherwise. And so take a listen right here as CNN grills Jacob Fry, mayor of Minneapolis, for cooperating with ICE during the Obama administration, but refusing to do so under Trump. Take a listen.
It is worth noting that during the Obama years, the Hennepin County Jail actually had a policy where they let an ICE agent keep an office there and allowed them to talk to immigrants. So the policy has clearly been, under a Democratic president, what now the Trump administration is asking for. I mean, big picture, do you think it's good policy for the jails to follow an ICE detainer and hand someone over if they've committed a crime? And again, this only happens after they've served their time, for whatever crime they may have committed against the people of Minnesota.
I mean, look, you're asking all the right questions here. And while I don't have full expertise in how the operations at the jail are conducted, again, that's not our jurisdiction. What I would say is that there are mechanisms to do this lawfully.
Yeah, let's not pretend this is rocket science. Come on now. The mechanism here is coordination with ICE. Period. Not letting criminals get released back into the community. Unique concept, huh? You don't need to be a jail expert to understand that. He's supposed to be the mayor. If someone is already in custody and there's a federal hold, coordination means they don't just walk out the back door. That's it. That's the whole concept. You don't hold them an extra day. You just let ICE know and they come and grab them from the cell straight into the van or however ICE is going to remove them. Acting confused about this doesn't make you principled. It makes you look like you're pretending not to understand something extremely basic. And from a mayor, give me a break. All right, so let's get into this next clip because this right here sums up the Democrat Party in a nutshell when it comes to law and order. Scott Jennings is stunned after Bakari Sellers flat out admits he advises someone to impede law enforcement and illegal activity.
Would you advise someone, even if they're very angry, even if they don't like the laws, to insert themselves into the middle of an active law enforcement situation?
If they see something wrong, absolutely.
You would advise a person or a client of yours to literally engage in the middle of an active law enforcement matter?
If they see something wrong, I would say yes. I would say definitely
That's a crime.
I would say put your.
You're advising people to commit crimes.
What I'm advising
do you
people.
consider filming with a phone?
Just to be extremely clear, because I know how these things get clipped and shipped around on Twitter. What I'm actually telling you, Scott, is if my client came to me and said, Bakari, I was outside and I saw something going down and I saw somebody being abused and I went and tried to put myself in between them, or I raised the camera, do not hit officers. Do not spit on officers. But yes, by all means, if you see something wrong, videotape it. I mean, I can't sit here. My dad was a member of SNCC, right? He was a professional disruptor.
Holding a camera is different than inserting yourself or inserting your vehicle into the middle of a law enforcement.
I think, but Scott. That was not a trick question, and you don't need a law degree or to be a legal expert to understand as common sense, or at least what should be common sense, that if you see local, state, federal law enforcement officers doing their duties and tasks on the job, you do not insert yourself in the middle of it. You don't need to be a law student to understand that. If you want to watch from the sidelines, if you want to record from the sidewalk, from your vehicle, whatever, if you want to yell things at them and tell them that they're corrupt, or say how you feel about the situation and how this person's not getting a fair shot, well, you can do that too. But inserting yourself into the middle of it is not, you take this guy's advice, it's not going to end well for you, as we've seen on a couple occasions now. And as long as you got people like this guy who believes that's actually sound advice, unfortunately, there will still be those who are not as smart and intelligent as this guy is to say and advise people to do it, as the people who will actually go out and then go do it because they heard, yeah, we can impede and interrupt law enforcement. I guarantee you this guy, though, he'll sit behind the desk, he'll be on camera, and he'll say this is what people should do, but he won't do it himself because he understands the consequences and what type of predicament that could place him in. But that's my take, ladies and gentlemen. Now let me hear from you. Drop your comments down below. Don't forget, smash that thumbs up. That's how I know you like the video. Subscribe if you want to stay locked in with more content. Until next time.